This is TWiT.
Apple will come up on this show from time to time, I'm sorry to say. But speaking of that Apple event, this next thing that I wanted to talk about was kind of interesting to me because it often seems like anyways, after an Apple event, there is usually the Android reaction, right? And it kind of comes in a couple of different flavors. In one case, Samsung has one of the flavors. The competing company starts to go out there with like an ad campaign that is really armed at showing you just how they've been doing it longer than Apple has, or that they've been doing something that Apple hasn't done yet. And in this case, that would of course be Samsung. They posted a Twitter thread soon after Apple's event, marketing image after image, kind of proving their point that, oh, Apple 48 megapixels, huh? You're almost there, Apple. We've had 108 megapixels for 2 years, 6 months, and 4 days. And, what's the hold on the Fold, Apple? We've been flexing for 2 years, 5 months, 20 days, bro. So, I find that funny. It's always a little bit of poking the bear, just in the Android realm, and we've certainly talked about it before, there are certain features that hit iOS that we're always, quick to be like, we had it first. And in this case, Samsung's the one doing that. So that's one reaction. And then the other reaction, and I don't know why I didn't think of this, but of course this is happening, is that there are developers out there who are scrambling to replicate what was probably one of the biggest surprise features of the iPhone announcement, which was this feature, what was it called? Why am I suddenly blank? The dynamic island. And essentially the idea of the dynamic island is the iPhone, whatever it is, Pro, is it 14, 15? I honestly can't remember. Has a cutout instead of a notch this time for the front-facing camera. And so what Apple created was something called the dynamic island. It basically blacks out where the camera is, like you are used to seeing with a cutout or a pill or a lozenge or whatever. But then when a notification comes through, they basically built an API around that notch area growing to reveal information. So essentially it becomes part of the UI instead of a limiting factor that you work around. It becomes just kind of part of the experience. And I don't know, I thought that was a pretty smart move on Apple to kind of embrace that. Very clever. Now we have developers, as shown on the video. If you're watching the video version, there was someone on Twitter from TechDroider who tweeted out an example of and this is an app in China. I was looking for this and I couldn't find it. So it'll probably hit here eventually. That does this, allows you to create the dynamic island effect for your device. And my understanding of this is that it allows you to, because every Android device has different size cameras in different places and everything. So with this app, you can actually kind of, of course it's Android, customize where it is, how large the camera hole is, get it dialed in just right, and then have those notifications kind of spring from there in a similar fashion. So, the other side of the Samsung example is, Apple did something, we're going to do it too. So brace yourselves. We're going to see a lot of dynamic islands coming to Android here in the coming months.
That's a great band name, by the way, Dynamic Islands.
Dynamic Islands!
I do want to note that the person that posted this Xiaomi theme, the next tweet in that thread was, the theme name is Grumpy UI in Chinese. And I just kind of feel like that kind of encapsulates that, that reaction of like, oh, well, kind of thing. But, yeah.
Why weren't we there first? Why didn't we think to do that? Yeah. It's pretty smart. It is interesting though. That's one of those things that when you see it, you're like, oh, I'm really surprised no one thought to do that before. And I'm really surprised no one thought to do that before. But now we're going to see it a bunch.
I have to interrupt.
Yeah.
Someone did do it. The HTC U Ultra did it with a separate screen. And it had a separate secondary screen.
Okay.
Except they just kind of left it there and they didn't develop it. So you can literally show you could put a couple things in it, and it just. Ugh.
So the top bar was kind of reserved. Yeah. And it's not just HTC. LG also had a secondary little sliver screen. Do you remember that, Ron? This is probably sometime in the last 3 to 4 years.
Vaguely, yeah.
And But I guess what I'm saying is, like, it's one thing to have that area be notifications. It's another to, like, well, no, I guess they're about the same.
Yeah.
I guess they're both kind of achieving the same thing, which is turning that kind of what could be dead space into notification space. It's just, it's just animated differently. So I guess maybe they are the same.
Well,
I guess you're
there's
right.
like a thing too where everybody's like, it's not a notch, it's a dynamic island. So it's like,
Yeah.
It's a very clever way of hiding the dead space.
Yeah.
exactly.
It's really
That's
clever.
all it is.
Yeah.
It's really clever. It's a great solution. Yeah.
Totally.
And that's it. It actually reminds me. Do you remember like the Motorola 360 because it had a flat tire? It really kind of reminds me of. There were some watch faces where it actually used like the bottom portion of the flat tire
In the
be, like,
design, right?
Yeah.
in the design. And
Yeah.
I like that, but it really made me, I mean, this is a lot more dynamic, to be fair, and a lot more clever and a lot more like math is going on here. But it's definitely a great idea. And I love the idea that it's making something disappear. But it's a very clever UX.
Yeah. Well, and I also remember when hole punches were first starting to appear, there were developers that created apps that would put like your battery life as a little like red line around the hole punch, and then as your battery would deplete, that line would kind of, so it was taking this hole punch that had to be there in the design of this device and making it useful in a different way, as kind of working with your limitations. And so yeah, I think it's really clever. But, I'm probably giving too much credit to Apple, and I'm sure we're going to hear from people, because you're right, Burke. Thank you for pointing that out. It's not the only time that we've seen that space be used for something like this in the world of Android. It's just Apple sometimes has an elegance about how they design these things that are appealing. Like, it's appealing to see that thing grow. And if you didn't know that there was a camera under there that was designing around, then you just think it's a feature. And I think that's kind of why it's
Well, they do what Apple
smarter.
does, which is they find something interesting. They wait till somebody drops the ball, and then they come in and they do it right,
Yeah.
and they support it, and they make it interesting, and they make
do
it
right.
well.
I don't
more right.
I mean that's not fair.
Oh,
That
I mean,
think
in this situation, it is. I feel like.
I think they put resources behind it and develop it to fit
Right.
the best within iOS, right? Whether or not that's right or wrong, having used an iOS phone and seen some of the things that they lifted from Android, I argue whether they did them right or not, but they, but they did them nonetheless. I will give them credit. This is very cool, and it looks cool in theory. I'm curious how it works in practice, but
Yeah.
Well, and this is an advantage of them having such a tight ecosystem of one OS and their own series of devices. Because, I mean, certainly,
Right.
conceivably, you can do this on Android, and there is an API in Android that lets you tell if there's a notch and where it is and all that. Now, from an Android developer's perspective, I would have to test that on, like, if I wanted this to be a successful app, would need to make it work on a whole bunch of different phones, which is not something that a lot of developers have the resourcing and time for, and there's always going to be holes. So this is definitely something that is a clever idea, but is also really can be taken really clear advantage of by Apple, because they have a small set of things that this is going to look amazing on, and they can make sure that it looks amazing on every single place that it conceivably be. So
Yeah, right.
So yeah, not jealous. Just saying,
Not jealous.
saying, like,
Just saying, I'm not jelly.
Just saying,
I'm not jelly. I don't want that. I want that, but that there, pointing to the Pixel. Who knows? In 2 years, Google will have its own dynamic island. What will Google call it? What will Google call the dynamic island?
I mean, I will give them credit. Dynamic Island is a great name. I
don't know. I think
really
it's
like
kind of
that.
weird, to be honest.
I like it. I like it.
I heard it. I was like, oh, I don't know. There was something about it. I mean, it's an interesting name, but a dynamic island is a name.
I knew exactly what they meant. I knew exactly what it meant when they saw it. Yeah, totally. Because it's an island. It's a little island that changes size based on the content. Like it made sense to me. It clicked.
Now, what about this? Before we move on, because now we are talking all about Apple.
All about Apple.
When I look at the dynamic island, often when I've seen it, and
It sounds like a TV show name. Like it's got so many different
Welcome to
practical
Dynamic
uses.
Island.
Exactly.
it reminds me of the notification shade on Android.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, okay, so the difference is that it's not connected at the top and it's on an island. Like, I don't know, like they're very similar. So in many ways, Google kind of, Android did it first. I don't know.
Android's always done it first. That's the thing.
That's the thing.
I mean, Apple did it first, then Android came along, then Apple, then it's a tennis match.
Yeah, it's totally good.
Robbo in Discord has Google's name for this feature. It'll be called the notification pond.
That's a good one too.
We have our own body of water.
Notification oasis.
Notification oasis.
Yes.
That's it. Oh, there we go. Right on. All right.